Hello everyone and welcome back to Ruby Lessons on Codecademy. The last lesson was quite a long one. We talked about a few things. We talked about the loop method, next, saving multiple values, so arrays, and the each method iterator, the dot times, and we tried out the each iterator for ourselves. Today we're going to be having a review of what we have covered in this whole section. So we're going to be starting with the while loop. Let's see what we have learned then. So in the above example, we create a variable called I and set it to 3. Good. Then we have a while loop, so then we print out 3 to 1 since we execute the loop, so long as I is positive. So because I is 3, while I is more than 0, so while it's not 0, so as long as it's 1 or more, in this case anyway, because we were talking about integers, it's going to print with a value of I and decrease I by 1. So once I reaches 0, it's going to end. And that will result in 3 to 1 being printed out. So that's just a refresher of how it's used. Instructions use a while loop, so we know we will need while, to print out the numbers 1 through 50 inclusive. While the example above counts down, you will want to count up. So 1 to I equals, I will start at 0, I will show you why. You can start at 1, but you will need to change the order of a line. So we can have while I is less than or equal to 50. Actually no, while I is, actually yeah, that should work, less than or equal to 50, do, or open curly brace, and I will close it here, for reasons I have covered in a previous video, puts I, and before I put I will increase I by 1. And, okay, what am I doing wrong? Do or, okay, let's do it with do, I guess then. Do and. It doesn't really matter, but I guess it wants me to do that. Less than 50. And because Codecademy is so picky, because I used puts there, it doesn't like it. So make sure to use print. Once I use print, everything is fine. That's really annoying though. Oh well, moving on. Looping with until. So that's the next thing we covered after while. It was quite similar to until. Also, because I was talking about other ways to do things, to do, for example, the each method, I talked how you can do it with a for loop and a while loop. You can also do it with an until loop. So, it's just another way of doing it. There are so many different ways to achieve the exact same result, some more efficient than others. Okay. In the example above, we wrote the same loop using while and using until. So, until is to do something until it's met, and while is doing it until it is false. So, until while I is more than 0, or until j equals 0, means the same thing. Instructions now rewrite your while loop using until. You still want to print out the numbers 1 through 50 inclusive. So I will basically copy this, here put until, if I can spell it, there we go, equals, and that is just annoying, I can't really debug it. I think I know what might be wrong, but just to make sure, it starts, yep, okay. I plus, oh actually no, that's weird. It starts at 2. Oh no, it doesn't start at 2, it starts at 1 because 1 is left behind. If I print it. So again, another reason Codecademy is picky, and I tried commenting this out and it works. So just comment out your while loop if it doesn't work and write out this code. I don't know why they've made it like that. I mean, they shouldn't leave this in if they want you to use it. But oh well, just comment this out, write it out with until, and everything is fine. Moving on then. Looping with for, so that's one of the other loops we covered. In case you're not picking up on the theme of Ruby having a gajillion ways to do any given task, let's convert our loop yet again. So I'll comment this out before I start, because it doesn't seem to like it. And as I was talking in the previous lesson, there are a lot of ways to achieve the exact same result. So in the example above, we print out 1 to 3 by the virtue of looping 1 to 3 inclusive. Now print out the numbers from 1 to 50 inclusive using a for loop instead of an until loop. For num in 150 print num end, and that should be fine. Good. We get the exact same result as before. As I've said before, also ignore that, because that's from Codecademy. Loop the loop with loop. Okay, that sounds interesting. I think I know what it's talking about there. Great work. We'll give you a bit of a break from the numbers game. Good. Finally. So let's look at the following piece of code. M equals 0. Okay, doesn't mean much so far. Loop do m plus equals 1, we're increasing m by 1, so it's going to be 1 if we start at 0. Print m and break if m is 10. Okay, so this should print all of the numbers from 1 to 10, actually. From 1 to 10. And that is exactly what it does. Instructions. Use the loop iterator to print out the string Ruby 30 times. Oh, thank you very much. That sounds like a lot of fun. M equals 0. Again, loop do, or you can use curly braces. I'm always going to be doing the opposite of what's shown, just to show a few ways of doing it. M plus equals 1. Print Ruby. There we go. Break if m equals 1m equals 30. And then close the bracket. And good. We get the correct result. Ruby gets printed out 30 times. Notice that you don't actually have to print out the value of the variable that you're using for iteration. You can just print out anything you want. You can't just use the variable for iteration just for checking. You don't really have to do any other thing with it. You can just use it for calculations, as shown here. Moving on. Iterating with the dot times. So this is the much easier way to do the previous task. Finally, let's replace our loop with the dot times iterator. Use the dot times iterator to print Ruby 30 times. So 30 dot times, and that is not how you spell times. Do print Ruby. To the console, hit save and submit code to see if it's correct. There we go. We got the exact same result as we did before. That is good to know. So this is obviously much more efficient than what we did here. But in some situations, even though something might be more efficient, it might make more sense to do the less efficient way, just so that the code is more readable. And in some situations that can be much better, especially if you're giving the program to somebody else, or if in the previous section of the code you've been using something similar. So if you've been using the loop method so many times before to achieve one task that could have been done with while or for or dot times, you should continue using the loop method, just so that it makes sense, and so that you're consistent. Even though something else might be more efficient, because computers these days have enough resources to handle the few extra bytes that are needed to execute this compared to the loop method. But sometimes it does just come down to personal preference. This is more efficient, and the previous one you would use if that was your preference. So yeah, this was, along with what we have learned about iteration and looping, we also learned that there are loads of different ways to achieve the exact same result. In different ways, more or less efficient, and more readable, less readable. So thank you for watching this lesson. If you enjoyed it, then you know what to do. If you didn't enjoy it, then tell me in the comments why you didn't enjoy it. If you have any questions, do ask in the comments down below. I will answer them as soon as possible. But until the next video, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.